Hello guys, Colin here. Overdrive, Distortion and Fuzz. What's the difference? Well, they're all ways of distorting an audio signal, but they do it in different fashion and achieve different results. To answer this question, we must first understand how distortion occurs. Natural distortion generally occurs when a sound becomes too loud for the device handling it to cope with, and the audio waveforms become distorted versions of what they should be. In amplifiers, there will be a maximum amount you can amplify a signal by before it starts to distort. How high this ceiling is usually dependent on the power rating of your amplifier. Note that this is not the maximum volume of your amp. We call this headroom, how much room there is between the head of the wave and that ceiling. We can amplify safely up until that point without changing our waveform, but if we continue to push the wave higher, then the tops of the wave deform against that ceiling. The higher we push, the more squashed the waves become and the more the signal distorts. This results in a buzzy, gritty sound with a loss of definition and an increase in compression. And for a very long time, distortion of an audio signal was a huge problem to be eliminated. And while that's still true in many areas in the world of electric guitar, this bastardization of the sound wave has become desirable to the point of necessity. And the challenge is to form this destruction into something beautiful and usable. So we make devices that assist this process, creating electronic environments that promote distortion at low volume levels. There are three main tribes, especially in the world of effects pedals. Overdrive is the most natural of the three. This simulates the effect of amplifying a signal to the point where the device can't quite handle it anymore. To get this sound from a pedal, we use something called soft clipping. Soft clipping is achieved by putting clipping diodes in the feedback loop of the op-amp inside our audio circuit. This produces a rounded but cropped wave, which is very similar to what we find in a loud valve amplifier. The term overdrive is in reference to driving an amp over its clean capacity. When an amp starts to distort, we say it's overdriven. Breakup is another term that's often used to describe this sound, simply a clean signal breaking up as it's amplified too far. Of course, natural overdrive sounds just aren't going far enough for some forms of music. Rock and especially metal require full-on saturated distortion. This can either be achieved by running several overdriven elements into each other until we stack up enough distortion, like we see in the multiple cascading preamp valves and amplifiers, or we can achieve it from scratch using hard clipping. Hard clipping is achieved by placing our clipping diodes after the op-amp and connecting them to ground. This very abruptly severs the tops of the waves, giving a much more aggressive distortion sound. Some high-gain amplifiers will even include hard clipping into the preamp section to assist the valves in getting the levels of distortion required by players. In both these cases, careful design of the circuit and tone shaping elements is made to ensure that the overdrive or distortion is tasteful, natural, and high quality. And then there's fuzz. The inspiration for fuzz comes from the sound of faulty amplifiers, and so devices were created to emulate this brokenness without having to ruin good equipment to get it. These were some of the earliest attempts at getting high-level distortion sounds outside of an amplifier, and as such, the circuits are usually remarkably simple with only a few basic components. You won't often find op-amps and clipping diodes inside fuzzies, although there are some exceptions. What you'll usually find doing all the work is a couple of transistors. Fuzz is a remarkably violent way of distorting an audio signal, amplifying and slicing those waves until they're almost square. Usually with a good bit of asymmetry, the square wave destruction creates a very nasty lo-fi effect, which can be glitchy and harsh. Mixing this in with an overdrive can produce some very interesting sounds, but that's not to say that fuzz can't be used effectively on its own. What makes a good fuzz is one of the most hotly debated topics in guitar effects, and if you're looking to keep yourself entertained for a few hours, go into absolutely any guitar forum and search for threads discussing germanium versus silicon fuzzies. Now this was a fairly brief and simplified view on this. There's a lot more history and in-depth science that I could go into, but perhaps that's a video for another time. Check it out. If you found this video useful for your knowledge, then why don't you consider hitting the subscribe button so you can be alerted of all the new content that I'm bringing out. This might be a bit like this. Patreon's also there for exclusive secret stuff. All my videos are made possible by the generous support of the people over on Patreon, and they get to see videos that you don't. So if you're not signed up to Patreon, why not go about it? It's a great way of supporting me and getting extra content in at the bargain. Social media links will be in the description box underneath the video, and leave me a comment in the comment section below. Let me know what you think of overdrive, fuzz and distortion. Which is your favourite and what ones you have. Anyway, that's all for just now. So if you guys want to keep it loud, I'll see you later.